Hello, and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. Hi, I'm painting an extravagant mural in my mind, Trey, and I am joined by a person who can make a tapestry of said mural, Emily. Hi, Emily.
Can I though?
I think you can.
um, I always said I would stop it when it came to weaving. If it got to the point where I'm weaving my own fabric, probably I need to calm down.
No, I disagree.
No.
Because there's going to come a day, like you have messaged me about fabrics that you adore, and there will come a day that you're like, oh man, they sold out of this fabric. Guess I gotta make it. So I feel like you're going to weave it at some point.
Okay. It's possible. I won't discount that. It's always possible.
Okay, I feel like I just put something bad out into the universe.
No, no. It's speaking of that though. I heard today that Joanne Fabrics as a chain will be closing all stores. They
Um,
started with like a whole bunch and now they're just going to close them all. But it sounds like they sold to another company. So maybe we have hope somehow. I have nothing new to report besides that.
my insider trading also has revealed said information.
Mm.
I do kind of hope it's like Toys R Us, where they get it down to like one store or two stores, and then they start branching it back out. So,
Yeah.
what a great time to look for alternative fabric locations.
Some independent ones.
Yeah. If you have any suggestions, I'm definitely looking for some sources. So please send it to info@themodron.com with your recommendations or tag us on Instagram or Facebook.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. I'd love to share that. Anyone who sends them in, I will be happy to share with our community because they're going to be looking.
mhm.
We will be looking.
We are said community
We
as
are.
well.
Yes, it's us.
But I would really like to dive into today's guest. She's already been making us laugh in the green room before the podcast got started. So I would really love to introduce our fantastic guest. So, Emily, would you do us the honor?
This is one of those times where I was tempted to be like, what is it? Oh, the player reverse card. Because you wouldn't be ready for it. And it's one of those things where I'm never ready for your intros. So this would be one you weren't ready for. But I'm ready. So
Okay.
I'm pleased to announce that on the show tonight we have Ray Tedeton. She is the director of school. She's the director of the School of Art and Design at ICA, which we had Rosalie Russell on the show a few weeks ago. She was from the Institute of Creative Arts. That's what ICA stands for. But she's also a passionate artist and muralist. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so
Yay!
much. I feel like I was making you laugh maybe with my awkwardness, but I'm gonna turn on the jokes now. Don't worry.
Yes.
You heard it. The switch has been turned on.
Oh no, the pressure. Oh
Click.
no.
Right.
Um, well, being before we talk about like you being a director and being an educator from that standpoint, I'm really curious what got you into art.
That is a fantastic question, and I was thinking about it today because I felt like you might ask that. Um, I ever since like I was in school, like school age, I just remember having a big connection to drawing. And I I think I always wanted to pursue it as a career. I grew up in a location though where art careers weren't very common. Um, but I really had great supportive parents that kind of saw that like talent and that passion within me, and they continuously supported it. And then in college, I was actually pre-med,
Really?
and and I kind of like looked around one day and I like missed that like textile nature of making. So I just switched and the rest is history.
Wow. Uh,
A valid switch.
Thank
yeah.
you. I think so.
Did you start out with any particular medium, or was it always just like wherever you could get art?
I would not say that I like stick to one medium. I've thought about that too and why, but I think when I was younger, I would just like make with whatever I could find. A lot of times that was just a set of colored pencils and a sketchbook. But I've definitely worked with fabrics some. I work with a lot of like printmaking, with a lot of collage. But ever since I was a kid, I remember my mom worked at from home at like a computer desk, and she would have like sticky notes. And every time I go home, I still like draw her something on a sticky note, and I'll like post it up for her. But yeah, I think I make with kind of anything I can find.
That's so awesome. Like, I feel like you're the type of person that would go out to, I don't know, say like a Goodwill, and you'd look at something and go, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take this, put it together, and just art.
I just made a quilt square out of old fabrics, and it's like a giant one. So you are correct.
Yes.
Ding,
Okay,
ding,
that's
ding.
Ding,
something.
ding, ding. 1 point for Trey.
Oh, we've got points now?
Oh, we
Oh,
should
Oh,
do.
yeah.
I have a way to do that too. Let me
Got
see if I can.
tallies.
We're gonna do 1 point for Trey.
okay.
There.
Oh,
This is
for the
perfect.
for those listening to the audio only version of this, Emily added a 1 to the end of my on-screen name.
Yeah, I don't know how else to do that. There's no like. Yeah. For now, on the fly, that will work.
Yeah.
I wish I had like a bell. I could just like ding a bell whenever.
Ding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I need a buzzer. This instantly got more competitive.
Welcome to the Modern Romantic Game Show.
That's right.
So, I mean, even in those types of things, do you intentionally set out to go find certain things, or do you find that your creativity is inspired by when you just go like look at things?
I would say that a lot of my things start as an idea in my head, maybe like a concept. So with the quilt square that I was making, I was just thinking about like inheritance and people receiving like hand-me-downs, like things that come from our past generations and things that we hold on to. And I come from Louisiana, where the swamp is just like such a beautiful but nasty thing. And I am in this part of my life where I wasn't always happy being from Louisiana, but now I sort of have like I'm like reclaiming it. And so I was thinking about like gradients and textures and patterns, and I was like grabbing old stuff, but it didn't quite make the gradient that I wanted. So I would go to Goodwill and just look for things that kind of match the colors in my head.
Cool.
That is really dope.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it is. So you know how to sew.
No,
Oh, all right. No, this gets even better.
that's right. I am all about shock value here. No, I taught myself, and it's all hand stitched because I like the idea of like tactile, even like the mess ups make it kind of nice, like the concept that I'm going for, just kind of reclaiming everything and like
You
stitching it
get a
together.
point for that. You get a point for that. We're gonna.
Ding!
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Ding. I don't have a bell either. I wish.
Oh my gosh, I have one in my classroom. I wish that. Oh, hold on.
Ding.
Maybe. No, it's not gonna work. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's fine. I
Trying
will.
my
We could
best.
just say ding. It works.
I like ding.
That's amazing. I'm always encouraging people to go for it anyway and to dive in anyway, and don't let little things like I don't quite know how stop you. Like look at your sewing and you don't. Yeah, I love it.
Well, I just
I'm
think
not even
about
completing sentences.
no. I like thinking about how people learn things, and that may be why I'm an educator now. But I'm in my head, I was thinking about, okay, well, did just like this whole concept of like ancestry and stuff like that. People just like had to learn it one day and then pass on that information. And so in my head, like using a sewing machine just didn't feel right. And so I'd never hand stitched before, but I was like, fabric one and fabric two are definitely going to go together, and I'm just going to figure out how. So
Awesome. I sometimes sit and think about that too. Like someone had to try this for the first time and go, oh, the same with like recipes and cooking too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we would never think to put these two ingredients together, but we're going to try it. And guess what? Now it's good. Same with art.
Yes, and I will admit the first quilt square I made looked atrocious, but the second one looked better.
Mm-hmm. That is how it works.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. The first skirt I ever made has a slit that's way, way too deep, way too tall, way too much.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 9.
Maybe, okay, let's rephrase that. It's a skirt for a different occasion.
Okay, yeah.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Yes,
It's a differently occasioned skirt.
that's right. You didn't mess up the skirt. You made it for a different occasion.
Yes, and then I used it for backyard play.
That's the occasion.
It, it turned out to be. No one said anything.
That's right.
Maybe they should have, but they didn't.
No, they shouldn't have. They should have let you have your play.
They did. Yeah. How about you, Trey? The first thing you made was glorious.
No, absolutely not. You were there for the first thing that I
Yeah, I
made.
know. And it was glorious because you just
No.
did it.
Okay, so the first thing that I made was my very first cosplay costume, like ever. And at the time, I was actually living with Emily, but I got a lot of instruction. So I wasn't figuring it out on my own. I was being guided with a lot of like instruction and that sort of thing. So I will say that my first one was like above average for my first time out the gate. Um, but I do the things that I make now versus what I made back then. Yeah, things are a lot better now.
I'm questioning whether or not I knew that was your first one. I don't know. It doesn't matter now, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, you did great.
Thank you. But again, so on that thing of like uh, learning and how people learn and that sort of thing, that's why I love when people go out and do things and watch them that let fire light up in their eyes and you just kind of watch them go, ooh, I get to make things. It's a little gremlin-y, I know, but it's
No, it is
so
Yes. Gremlin is the perfect way to describe it. It is so funny that you say that because I call my students my gremlins because that is exactly the look that they get. You described it perfectly.
it's phenomenal. So to anybody out there who's listening who just gets that spark of joy and you just kind of get a little giddy inside of like, ooh, I get to make this. Please feel your mad scientistness. Please go feel that gremlin energy.
I want to clip that.
Oh, good. Um, so your passion lies with so many different forms of art. How did you come to land on things like murals, and how did you come to land on these very large scale sorts of artwork?
So, with that, I'm going to have to shout out my college my undergraduate college, and that was Louisiana Tech University in Ruston, Louisiana.
Okay.
I have no regrets about my experience there because truly the entire staff of professors that helped guide me really brought me into those different passions. One professor specifically, she is a mural artist, and she was, I think, busy just like at that specific time and had a mural job. And she brought me to the side and was like, I feel like you would be great at this. And it's all history from there. I honestly owe her a lot. But she kind of like guided me through my first mural, like sharing with me all of the tips and tricks and helping me to work with my first client. And yeah, um, I have to I have to give it all to like the artists before me that have really helped guide me and shape me into who I am.
That's awesome though to have some a mentor that can show you those tips and tricks because there at least maybe there is and I don't realize it, but there's no like the mural school.
And that's what I'm
So
creating.
that's awesome. Oh yay.
Yes, my first mural class starts next year.
Oh, wow.
I think that an art community, they usually thrive off of sharing information. Um, I know some people, uh, want to work, like have that information that they worked really hard for, and so they don't feel like sharing it, and that's totally valid too. But I feel like I have been so lucky to have these mentors that have been giving their all and sharing all of that information with me that I think it would be really selfish if I didn't give back. So my mural class next year, I'm going to be teaching them how to like work with clients, building their designs, and then they'll actually
Mm,
start painting the murals in the community. So
that's
Very cool.
amazing. Um, for you, I am curious, do you find that your do you find that your subjects, whether it be for murals, whether it be for your own personal art, or even the squares that you were talking about earlier, do you find that in a particular style, or do you find that your personal artistic style changes depending on the medium that you're working with?
I definitely pick up a lot of the like similar motifs throughout my work. I've always been like bright color.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've had a focus on people and stories, like storytelling. But I wouldn't say that I've stuck to a specific style. I think that I look back on all of the work that I've made, and of course with murals, sometimes I kind of cater that style to what people are wanting, because all of it has been commission based. But when it comes to some of my personal work, the style kind of changes based on what I'm making. But I do have a similar motif of just very bright color and storytelling and portraiture.
Mhm.
I noticed that when I looked at your Instagram, and the bright colors really stand out. That's probably what stood out first. But also, like, you seem to like, I don't know what this style is called, but you do this thing with like chunks of color that completely escapes me as an artist. And it's done in a way that I find to be brilliant, but also like I couldn't duplicate it at all. Is that a style name that I don't know, or is that just
Um,
you that's just what
yeah.
you do?
I think it started when I was learning how to paint and color blocking. So that's, one of the first stages of like starting a painting.
Is it okay?
And if it's like large blocks of color, it can be called like color field painting. But that specific style, I haven't figured out why I'm so drawn to that yet. Sometimes for me, it looks almost like puzzle-like, and so I'm
Yes.
sure that that's something that I'm tapping into, and I just haven't figured it out yet. But yeah, I like to focus more on color, and so the pieces end up coming out a bit more puzzly. But
Okay.
um, I've really just like embraced it. So.
There's like this picture of a doorway, and like through it is like a fountain in the
Mm-hmm.
distance. And one thing I noticed was like the doorway is surrounded by what looks like a brick kind of wall.
Mm-hmm.
And you make the bricks look like they would be real. It's just fewer colors than maybe what our eye would see.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here going like, you knew exactly how to make that still look like brick and using only just a couple of colors. That's amazing to me.
Thank you. I am trying to practice limiting my color palettes because sometimes I get a little too crazy and then I step back and I'm like, what have I done? I had a great color palette, a great kind of spread, and I threw something into it. But that painting is one that I just finished a few months ago, and it
Okay.
has like a really interesting story to it. I think I have the
It's
photo it
from
was based on
Spain.
right here.
Yeah.
Hold
Oh,
on.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So kind of on that motif of like storytelling and like ancestry,
mm-hmm.
I've been collecting like old photographs, and I have a friend in Austin, Texas, that found this at like a Goodwill and sent it to me. And it's this like picture, and it was cut in two,
Oh,
but they found both parts, and they sent
cool.
it to me. and was just like, I feel like you'd love this. And I was like, I have to paint this. Are you kidding me? That's beautiful. And so I just kind of did this limited color palette of cool versus warm. And I think with that limited color palette, I was like, okay, I can't do every brick in this photo. So
Right.
kind of had to mesh some together.
Well, and the original is black and white, right?
Yes.
So you added color,
Hmm.
but that's, I mean, I wouldn't have known that's from a black and white photo.
Well, thank you.
There's like zero black or white in this picture.
No, those are two colors I try not to use too much of.
That is just fascinating, though.
The
Thank
one that
you.
the one that really compels me is the portrait that you did of a friend. It's done in a lot of like blues and purples and very cool tones. It
Mm-hmm.
For me, it looks like she's, I don't know, sitting in front of a glass pane at an aquarium, and so you've got this like rippling water going across her face. That, I don't know what it is, but just the way that her eyes are positioned in the midst of this kind of rippling effect. I Can you please talk to me about this painting?
Yes, I love that one. I also did this one a few months ago, but I said that I was from Louisiana and I'm trying to like reclaim that part of myself and
Mm-hmm.
be proud of it. Louisiana comes with a lot of folklore, and so I've been reading a lot about that, some of the stories I've heard growing up, and one of those is called the Fifoulet. It's spelled like Fifolet. Um,
Okay.
but it is basically this folklore about a blue orb that floats onto the water, and people in boats, like fishermen, would see it and follow it, and it would lead them to like their destruction or chaos. And um,
Wow.
I did it of my friend because I mean, they are just like this like dynamite person. They do not care about what people think. They kind of just like choose their own path and go with it, and that really inspires me like, every day. And I wanted to do kind of this take on the fifoulet that maybe isn't it's not such a bad thing, just kind of like follow your intuition.
Mm.
And so I thought about, the swamp and the water and it being casted over their face. And yeah, that's kind of just what inspired it. But they're a super inspiring person, and I took a photograph of them in this blue light, and instantly I was just like, I have to paint them in this way. So
I,
It's really neat.
yeah, I
thank
think you
you.
did them justice.
They
Mm-hmm.
love it.
Good.
Yeah, for sure. I don't doubt that. I would.
You're
Yeah.
getting painted next. Do not
Oh,
worry.
did not expect that.
It's gonna be in fabrics and patterns. It'll be
Ooh,
great.
Oh,
that would be amazing, actually.
that would be really cool.
That'll be my thank you gift for having me on the show.
Oh,
Oh.
I've
you
got
said
you.
this live on the air now.
I know. And I'm gonna live up to it. Do not worry.
Oh, goodness. I'm so
Hmm.
excited.
You should be. I need a clear photo of you because you're really tiny right now, but
That's true. Yeah.
you'll have to send that to me.
Here, we'll give you another point for that.
Thank you so much.
um,
Yeah.
so, with your position on art, like you seem so fearless when it comes to playing with art or doing something experimental when it comes to that. Thinking and transitioning to your thoughts on like an educator, how do you encourage that same sort of like fearlessness into your students?
That's a really great question. Um, I think my fearlessness, might sound a little bad, but I think my fearlessness comes from being okay with rejection now. I used to be terrified. And I think I hit this point of, making art for myself and not for anyone else, probably a few years ago. Um, and after, submitting my work and being rejected a few times, like I think I got really down. I was like, why am I even doing this,
Mhm.
And I stopped making for a year, and then I looked back on that year, and it was the worst year of my life. Um, and I just kind of realized that I am my best self when I'm making, even if it's something that people don't want to view, it's something that's helping me. And so I try to show my students that there's no one particular way to make. And I tell them to keep, submitting their work to shows. That's what we're fighting about right now, is I'm trying to get everyone to submit, and they're in their little angsty teenage ways, and they're like, no, it's not good enough. And I'm like, yeah, well, mine isn't either, but I'm gonna keep pushing forward because it makes me a better artist just to keep making and experimenting. And I think that's probably what I would, instead of art making, I feel like I'm just like experimenting with a ton of stuff. So
And it sounds like it's not submitting it to get in order to get feedback. It's submitting it to continue that cycle forward so that they continue
Mm-hmm.
creating.
hmm
It's
I
good
tell them,
practice.
yeah, I tell them that all the time because right now, we're hitting after the second semester. Um, February, if any other educators are listening, February is the worst because you come back from all of these breaks and then you have this long winter until spring break. And I can tell that the kids are tired, and I know for a fact my students work very hard, and so I have that sympathy. And they come to me and they're like, Miss Ray, I have artist block. I can't do it. And I'm like, do you want to know how you get over artist block? And they're like, I feel like you're about to say something that I'm not gonna like. And I'm like, that's right. I'm like, you just gotta keep making silly little things. And that kind of sticks with them. And so sometimes they'll be like, this isn't my best work, but it's just my silly little thing right now. And I'm like, that's perfect.
That's great.
Mm.
That's what great advice. Silly little
Honestly,
things.
they give me a lot of advice too. They are the epitome of a work-life balance. And I think this year I was talking to them because I'd make them do like a little bit of homework every week, and it's just some artist research because you got to keep researching artists and stay up to date to be making your hashtag my silly little thing. Yes. Okay. Um, and they kind of told me, they were like, Miss Ray, do you work when you go home? And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes, but not that much. And I told them, I was like, I do believe in a work-life balance. And so sometimes when they tell me, like, I'm pretty lenient on if they go home and they're like, I've got a lot going on. I'm like, I get it. You're not at work right now. So just get it done when you come in the next day.
Hmm.
I don't know. I learn a lot from them too. They're really great students. So
It sounds like it.
Are there any artists that you follow that you kind of bring into the conversation? And if so, who? Because I see you nodding your heads. Who are they?
so one artist that I think is probably one of the greatest portraiture artists of all time is Bisa Butler. And I'm bringing her up because you guys mentioned that you like working in fabrics.
Hmm.
Bisa Butler is a portrait artist that is traditionally a painter, but they started using textiles to create these gigantic portraits of Black life, but through the lens of all of these fabrics to tell their stories. And
Neat.
yeah, the quilts are beautiful, and I try to show my students that artist every year because it just kind of shows that fearlessness that we were talking about, of don't being afraid to switch up, your medium or your subject. This is an artist that kind of took this pivot, and it worked out really well. So
I wanna look them up now. Say the name one more time.
Bisa Butler,
Bisa.
Bisa Butler.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
One thing that, like, as we were talking, I don't know why this movie popped in my head, so I'm just going to use that. But I love the movie Mona Lisa Smile for their conversations about art. So I'm going to pose you the same question that she poses to her class, which is, what is art and what makes it art?
That's a really good question. And I have a feeling that I asked my students this question at the beginning of the year, and responses were very different, but all kind of the same. And so I think I'm just going to repeat what they said to me. And they said that art is kind of what fuels them to communicate with themselves. And
Mhm.
I felt like that was such a deep answer for these students to write down. And I agree with it. It making art is a conversation with yourself. And what makes it art is, for me, the dedication to the practice. I think that like, for me to make something and call it art, I feel like I've had to come back to it and look at it a couple of times. For me, it's not like a one and done process. For me, it's continuously thinking about this piece and revising, and it being all I want to talk about for the moment. So I think that like dedication and a little bit of obsession is what makes it art.
I love that
Definitely
answer.
the obsession part is relatable.
Yeah, I'm crazy when I'm in the studio.
Hmm.
The adrenaline's pumping for me. You said it was like the gremlin energy. For me, it's like this adrenaline rush, and I look up and it's midnight already, and I'm like, what am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I've
Mm-hmm.
been at that sewing machine until like midnight sometimes, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
why am I doing this to myself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes if I'm editing a photo, it's the same way. Like, and the clock doesn't exist, and it needs to not exist.
Right.
It needs to just.
It's not even like deadlines I'm trying to hit. It's the deadline like within me. I'm like, no, I'm not done with it yet. I can't go to bed
Mm-hmm.
until it's at this level.
Yep, still going. Do you ever intentionally walk away and come back because you need to you need a palette cleanse?
Constantly. There are times I know myself, and I know that when I get really obsessed with something, I'm not seeing all of the angles. And so I will work on something for a couple of days until I'm happy with it. And honestly, when I'm at my happiest with it, that's when I go get critique. Because if I'm super, super happy with it and I haven't taken that moment to look at all of the different like perspectives and angles, I will just leave it alone. And so usually when I'm with my happiest, I will like call up a few trusted art friends, and I'm lucky to have an inner circle that is very honest. We're all very honest with each other, and so they give me their feedback, and I go from there. So yes, I usually need a palate cleanse.
Okay. I am stunned by that answer to have that kind of forethought for you to say when I am at my happiest, that's when I need a critique. Usually when I'm at my happiest with something is when I'm like, I am done, I am ready to move forward. With that, it is not, admittedly, it is never a time that I want a critique or a need to take a step back and look at that. So I am flabbergasted that that is your approach to that, and I
Hmm.
love that.
Thank you. I kind of force that way of making onto my students, and they hate me for it.
Yeah.
But But I I often feel that if there are things that I do teaching that I'm not holding myself to, I feel very hypocritical. So truly like the way that I teach is the way that I am in my own practice. Like I hold myself to that same standard. And critique is just so important for making art that you're putting into the world because there are so many different perspectives and stories of people out there, and it's not really looking for a person's bias, but it's looking for how is this being conveyed to these other people. And I'm a person that I do want to put my artwork out there. Like it is a statement, it is a piece made by me. And so I do want to get these other outside, opinions and voices in on it to make sure that what I'm trying to say is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I imagine those people are actually close to you in some regard too. It's not just strangers you're sending these things to, so they know you.
Yeah, but if honestly, if a stranger walked up and was like, "I'm an artist," I'd be like, "Come here, take a
Mm.
sec. You wanna give this little opinion, please?" And I think that also comes with that like fearlessness. I'm okay with rejection and failure now.
Yeah.
Anyone could look at the piece and give me critique, and I'm just so grateful for it. But yeah, my inner circle are the ones that I trust with that honesty.
That's so fascinating. It takes something, a kind of humility to be able to do that, but also like it's like goes against a lot of, I'm sure that's why your students don't like that. I I know I was there once upon a time too where I was putting something out in the world and the last thing I want to hear was that after all the work I just did, I don't want to hear any critiques of it. Like I think I'm happy with it now and I'm just happy to be done. And so like what Trey said, but I get that because like we've interviewed a bazillion authors now too, and they do that where they're like, "Oh, when I wrote the thing, I sent it to my other author." You have like top authors in America sending each other their writing, going, "God, you just sent that to that person." And you're like, that'd be the one person I would never want to see my work because it's like no, that's like the not good enough feeling, which is the rejection fear, which isn't a positive thing necessarily, but I understand where it comes from because I've been there. So I applaud what you're doing, but also like that's really valuable and it's really valuable to be able to get there. I
Yeah,
think
well,
it's
I just think of it as like you were talking about the authors. I feel like when you make a piece of work and getting critique on it is almost like just asking someone to proofread it. Like,
yes.
what are you getting
Mhm.
from this? What are your takeaways? And even if that's just the base critique, like just a little cold read, I just think it's super helpful for the
Hmm.
artist to, again, it's making art, I feel like, is a conversation, and you know, a one-sided conversation is not super great. So
Right.
That is that is fascinating. I'm okay. All right. I'm just intrigued. Sorry.
Does that change how you might approach your next piece?
Honestly, yes. Um, I'm starting to see parallels because it's a conversation like at work, and um, like even with the day job that I have, we talk about feedback a lot as being a very positive thing, but we also talk about it in a very different context. But that context now that I'm realizing is not actually as different as I was thinking. So where I might be super happy with um, a vocal piece that I'm working on or a monologue or something like that, when
Hmm.
I get to a point that I am like, okay, I've practiced this, now I need feedback. And is what, like you said, is what I'm trying to convey coming out to you? What are you getting from this interpretation? So that is a very long-winded way of saying yes. It actually does change how I think about this.
I
By
mean,
the way, Emily, I've got an audition on Saturday, so I will be hitting you
oh, hooray! I'm
up.
so glad you're auditioning.
Yeah.
I feel like both of you get a point for that.
Oh, thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much.
you.
Okay, I'll add one.
Yes.
Yay, my first point. Trying to put a space between it so it doesn't look like our Instagram handles have a one added, or in your case, a two. It's just Orphe Tunes. There we go.
I am curious, why do you ask, Emily?
I guess because you said when I am happy with it, I just am like done. And so I thought, well, maybe now instead of just being done, you would consider bringing in a couple of people.
I would say so. I think it also kind of depends on the complexity of the work that I'm doing. So if it is, it, my initial reaction is to think, when do I want to be happy with something? If I'm thinking back to like the Renaissance costume that I was making, that was the most intricate thing that I have ever made. And by the time that I was happy with it, I was truly done. The lining was sewn in, all of the details were sewn on, and that sort of thing. So I think there also needs to be a conversation about when does that feedback or when does that critique come into play and at what
Mm.
point? Because I will admit,
Definitely before
oh,
your final touches.
before you're
Definitely.
wearing it.
Yes.
I'm walking out the door with it. Okay, can I get your feedback on this, guys?
You've got this like angry face, like, don't you dare tell me to change anything.
But I felt like that after it was all done. I didn't want it because I had spent so much time on it. I didn't want to take anything apart and redo it after spending that much time on it.
Yeah.
So it made it really hard.
Yeah, that is hard. That is hard. You know, I never used to think about it the way we're describing it tonight, but there are a couple of people I have shown my art to that I haven't considered what that it really was this that we're talking about. There was a I won't name names, but there is someone I know that's an art educator in Arizona, and this person took an interest in my photography, and I was just really floored and flattered is not the right word, but kind of like that. I was just completely like anyone you look up to taking an interest in your artwork is kind of a big deal to you. So it was a big deal to me. And now I send a lot of what I do to this person because I look forward to their critique and feedback, but also because they've been kind in the way they talk about it. You know, they're not just an ego boost. That has been part of it, and that's wonderful. But there are times when maybe it's, hey, did you consider trying this, or have you considered trying that? And then it's constructive, and then it's something that I look forward to hearing, even though it's a critique. And so now I realize I've been doing this without realizing that I've been doing this.
Yes, and you brought up a very important part of critique, and that's that not all feedback has to be negative. And I feel like it's easy to get really down on yourself when all you're
Yeah.
hearing is negative feedback. So this is actually what I give to my students to do.
Oh,
Oh,
what is
sorry, there's a
this?
bad word on the other side, but sorry, my meeting notes say this.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah, I see
Yeah.
this now.
Sorry. But
It's okay.
this is what it says. It's the little plus sign for positive feedback and then FYI for like for your information feedback. And so
Oh,
that's what I give to my students
I
to
like
kind of fill
that.
out.
That's really cool. Now,
I'm gonna use that.
do you have them fill it out for the other people's pieces or for their own piece?
For the other people's pieces. So everyone gets a little sheet like that and they put it right beside their artwork and we do kind of a gallery walk. I'll put on some just like a really nice playlist and give them 10 minutes and they walk around and I try to get them, it's kind of hard with, more than just a few people, but I try to get them to add something in the positive column and then something in the FYI column. So at the end, you may have, 10 things that maybe you didn't think of that you need to work on, but you also have 10 things that you did think of that are working really well. And so I feel like critique is all about that balance, especially with younger artists too. So,
Well, and sometimes the positive things they bring out are positive things you didn't think of. It's happened to me before with a photograph. There was an art teacher who saw it, and she was like, "Oh, I love how you used this swoopy line, and it mimics this swoopy line over here and this little one over here." And like, and I had not planned that, but she thought I did, and I went, "Ooh, maybe in the future that's something to think about for my next whatever." That maybe I can drop those little intentional Easter eggs.
we all have that instinct, and so I think the positive feedback is what helps the students like grow and like become more
Yeah,
confident in that instinct too.
absolutely. And then open to hearing. I love that. What a great approach. Trey.
I'm very
Trey
lost in
looks like he's
thought at the
doing
moment.
math in his head.
Yeah.
It's that meme of like the math is like coming out at the screen while I'm thinking about it. Um, just it's a lot of new concepts for things, and gestating that mentally is sometimes a very thoughtful process. So for your students, um, I'm curious, what was your first class like, and versus where you are now? What were some of the things that you've noticed that you did day one that you either changed or um, that you have started doing because of your first day?
That's a really good question. Haven't thought about that. I think the my first day of teaching, let me try and remember that. Um, I honestly haven't been teaching that long, but it feels so far away. My first day of teaching, I do remember being way more focused on the students feeling like understanding every little detail. So I teach digital art as well as traditional. And so
Okay.
my first day of teaching, it was all digital classes. And I remember going really in depth about everything that they could do using a computer.
Mm.
And now I feel very confident about these students just kind of using their instinct. I still teach them most of the things that you can do, but we space it out quite a bit because it's actually been very interesting watching students pick up things that I haven't taught them yet and experiment with them. And as I've already said, like my like experimentation is part of my process. So seeing the kids do it, it gives me that gremlin energy. I'm like, oh, what are they gonna do? And I feel that way a lot about a lot of artists. A lot of artists that are making, they don't use the materials in the specified way that, it was intended, and they come out with these brilliant like textures and things just looking very raw. And so I think that's probably the one thing that I've changed drastically is giving the kids more space to figure things out and have their own approach to it.
Hmm. Isn't that one of the joys of teaching too, is watching what they do with what you've taught them?
I was just saying today, so all of the students, and this is probably similar for a lot of artists out there, honestly, that never really got like an in-depth portrait lesson. But I was teaching them how to draw portraits a couple of months ago, and they all hated me for it. They were so mad. And I'm also that teacher that I'm gonna give them real feedback. And they love me and they hate me for it. But whenever portraiture came around, I warned them. I was like, we're going for accuracy here because drawing portraits can be difficult, and I want you guys to leave with this skill. And we did portraits for a month, just practicing them and getting the hang of them. And by the time they were done with portraits, they're like, oh, thank you so much. I never want to draw a portrait again. And here we are, 2 months later, and I gave them this more like thematic drawing, like, yeah, just like a basic theme. And I'm walking around the classroom, and all of them are portraits.
Oh,
And I stood there in the
yes.
classroom, and I was like, it's so funny how 2 months ago you guys said you would never draw a portrait again. And they all just laughed at me, and they were like, I know, I can finally draw portraits. It's so crazy. And I was like, my job is done.
That's so exciting. You get another point for that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes.
We
No, that's
must.
definitely a highlight. I really never thought that I would be a teacher. Like I did not go to school to be an educator. I went for my BFA. But I can't describe the amount of joy that being an educator has brought me. There was, I'm going to tell like a very quick story. I
Yeah.
know I'm
Oh,
getting way to the educator part, but
No.
last week, I also teach game design,
Oh, cool.
ooh.
which right now I'm teaching them about what makes a good game. So like right now we're diving into like board games, card games, and like just kind of examining the feelings that you get when you play those games.
Mhm.
And then they make their own games. So they had just finished making their own board games, like from scratch completely. Like they
Cool.
made their own cards, they made their own boards, game pieces, everything. And they had just finished, and it was Valentine's Day. And we had this like hour and a half window. And I told them, I was like, you guys deserve this break. We are just going to have like a fun little party. I printed out some like Valentine's Day themed Mad Libs. Hope you guys know what Mad Libs are
Yeah,
because the
of
Yes,
kids
course.
were
yes.
like, I don't know what a Mad Lib is. And I was like, this is my childhood. Sit down.
Yeah, mine too.
And so they played Mad Libs, and it was just this really awesome getting to watch them like be a community because they all just like love each other like family. And I left
Mhm.
the room for a few minutes, and when I came back, they were like right outside my classroom. There were no other classes really going on, and they were all in a circle playing music. And I walked up, and they were taking turns like going into the circle, just like dancing and cheering each other on. And I kid you not, I think that was like my favorite moment as an educator. I'm getting a little emotional and I don't know why.
Oh,
But just like seeing these kids just cheer each other on and be so supportive of each other's like artistic careers and endeavors and accomplishments, it was probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So,
that's like how it should be.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, wow.
That-
How cool that you got to see that.
yeah. And then they invited me in the circle. They were playing "Baby" by Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
And they were very shocked that I could rap the entire Ludacris verse, and I killed it. So
They were
thank
probably
you.
very impressed.
They did applaud me, and they said, "Miss Ray, I thought you were old," and I
I mean,
said, "Yeah, yeah." I just
yeah,
walked away. I was like, "I'm done."
like Justin Bieber's Baby
Right.
came out. I'm gonna look it up.
It's
I take it.
transcendent, okay? Like,
2010.
yeah,
It's 14 years ago.
right. They were like 3 at the time. So,
Yeah, I guess so.
mhm.
Jeez.
Uh,
You know that you made it as an educator when the students invite you into your circle and they call you the cool person?
It
Like,
won't last long. They'll, yeah, no, they'll hate me by Monday again. It's fine.
oh my God.
I truly like, I, it is a big roller coaster being an educator. And I do feel that me being an artist, this is kind of a crazy switch, but being an artist really has prepared me to be an educator because what I was talking to you about, that rejection and like failure, really educating is connecting with those kids and you don't get it right every time. And
yeah.
because I'm okay with that rejection, I'm okay with maybe not getting it that first time. I think that has made me, what's the word? Less frustrated about showing up to be this like amazing, cool, relatable educator every day. Like I
Mhm.
have really bad days. Um, but then I have those good days and it's like, okay, I'm back. I'm like, yeah.
And that makes you real and
Yeah.
authentic. And if you can show up authentically for them, they see that.
That has been the last year has my goal has just been to show up authentically, make art authentically. So you get a point for that. You're seeing right through me.
Thank you. Yeah, get a point.
Quick story. The I spent about 4 months being a substitute teacher, which was one of the hardest things that I think that I have done from
You are
an
our
emo-
soldiers. You are our soldier, just letting you know.
it felt like it, and there were definitely some battle wounds at the end of that. Um, but the thing that I remember the most was one class that I was subbing for a history teacher, and it was on the day of an AP history exam. And
So, high school.
yeah, high school. And they had just finished taking the history exam, and then the follow up lesson, they were to immediately start writing a paper. And I looked at some of these kids and I went, okay, no, we're not doing this. So the note that I wrote to the teacher was something along the lines of, um, all of the kids took the time. They really kind of took the necessary time. I gave them the assignment. They'll have it ready for you during the next class period. And then everyone finished probably about 30 minutes early. And I just sat there and I said, "Do you really guys really want to do this work, or do you want to sit and talk for a second?" And they're like, "We just kind of want to talk." And we sat and we talked about life, and I answered questions for them about what it was like working in the real world, talking to them about whatever they kind of had on their mind. And then cut to stop being a substitute teacher, got really hard for other reasons, and I wound up going to work with Emily at the location that will remain nameless at the moment. Cut to a few months later, one of the kids from that AP history class came in, walked in, instantly recognized me, and goes, "Mom, that's him. That's the guy that substitute taught for me. He's so dope." And I was over the moon.
Made your day.
Over the moon. If I could have given him a free tux for his prom, would have, but we needed the money and we needed the stats. But that just
You like
slipped.
gave him this core memory.
Yeah. So yeah, that I love that.
You get
so
a point for that. That's awesome.
Oh, yay.
We're all winners.
We're all winners.
No, but I think that's something that the students crave, and maybe it's because I'm still young enough to remember that energy in my 4 years of college, but that's the next step that these high school students are going to take. Either they're going to go to university or they're going to be out in the real world. And I don't want them to leave high school thinking that they cannot communicate with adults. And I am a person that believes that respect is a two-way street, and listening, again, a conversation is two people listening, two people talking. And so what you did is kind of how I approach my day too. I don't let the curriculum overpower like what I'm actually teaching, if that makes sense. I think that I love to get students' opinions on what they want to learn at the beginning of the year and try and integrate that into my curriculum throughout the year, because what they say is important and then what I have to say to them is important, and just trying to mesh those things together. So what you did, that's A+ in my book.
Oh, thank you.
You get an A+.
Yes.
Here, I have an idea. I figured out how to do something, and I think it'll work.
Okay.
I feel that you're about to get it.
Bam!
Too.
You got a gold star for the day.
Oh, yay!
How about we'll just do this all around?
Oh, this has been a great day.
I figured out how to do it.
This feels like a hype
Hooray.
session right now. I feel so good.
Where's Justin Bieber's Baby? We need to be playing that.
That's right. Let me get Ludacris on the verse.
Oh my gosh.
It wouldn't be the first time someone's broken into song on the show.
It's very true.
Right, Trey?
Stop. Ray, I've got to say, this last hour with you has been absolutely incredible. We do have two last questions for you before we wrap up the podcast. Sorry.
We can't wrap. This conversation needs to go on for at least another hour.
I was about to say, has it been an hour already?
Yes, it has.
I feel like it's been like 10 minutes.
You have to come back.
I would love to come back. Put
Please
me in the
do.
books, please.
Okay. We will talk about that after the show because it needs to happen.
Cool.
My question for you is, if you were able to have lunch with somebody, alive or dead, and it is just lunch for you to pick their brain, who is sitting on the other side of that table from you?
It's probably going to be the artist, Artemisia Gentileschi.
Okay.
Have you heard of that artist before?
I cannot say that I
I've
have.
heard that name.
Okay. Probably one of the most well-known female painters, and she is well known because there were not many female painters at that time. Her dad was a painter. I believe it was probably the Baroque period.
Yes.
Maybe. Okay.
Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her dad was a painter, and she went through some traumatic experiences and began to paint kind of her own side of a story. So one of the most famous paintings is Judith slaying Holofernes. And I've been asked this question before, and I think that will just always be my answer, because I would love to know that kind of bravery. You know, I would love to know that kind of fearlessness. And um, I would also just love to tell her how well known she is and how legendary she is, even these years later. So,
She was like an example of how powerful art is. And yeah, you can Google her. How to spell her last name is Gentileschi. And you should go look her art up. Trey, you've probably seen it. I've seen at least 2 memes with her art in it, so it's not completely unfamiliar.
yeah.
Okay. I will, after this podcast wraps, I will definitely go look her up. And then I'll have to record something for Patreon saying, oh my God.
Good answer.
Yeah, really good answer. And then the last one, we want to make sure that our viewing and listening audience can stay in touch with you and make sure that they stay up to date with your art and your career. Where can our audience go and find you?
On Instagram at Ray Tedeton. I'm gonna spell it out because I do have an unusually spelled name. It's Raetedeton. Or you can follow the art and design school that we're building right now, which is ICA Fort Smith, also on Instagram and Facebook.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. Um,
Go follow.
yeah. And I'm sorry, I lied. That was not my second question. That was just one we wanted to make sure. Um, what advice do you have for any people that are just getting into art? They haven't taken any classes. This is their first foray into things. What advice do you have for those?
My advice is don't strive for perfection, strive for experimentation, strive for collecting knowledge,
Mhm.
and be ready for rejection and failure. Just because that rejection and failure comes from someone else does not mean that it's rejection and failure within your own art practice.
Well said.
Well said.
Yeah.
Somebody clip that, please. Ray, sincerely, what else to say but thank you that you. Yes, you get a gold. You get more gold stars.
No, you guys get gold stars. Has been such a great conversation, and I really hope that we get to talk again.
Me too. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. Well, as we close this episode out, we want to thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Modern Romantic Podcast. You can find more conversations and behind the scenes content on Patreon. Just search for us there on the ModRom, or go to our website, themodrom.com. Thanks, everybody. And remember, teaching is art and